Good afternoon and happy Thanksgiving. I hope this presentation finds you and your family healthy and happy and ready for a good little break here for Thanksgiving. I am Blake Gardner and I'm the school superintendent of the Hill City School District. The purpose of this PowerPoint is to give you some COVID updates from the state and the county, and then to review our survey results that were sent out just in the last week. One thing I've tried to do is over the last 3 weeks send out a COVID dashboard just to make sure that everybody's on the same page and that there's no rumors going around that either we're having an outbreak or vice versa, that there's no cases. But I just want to make sure that the information out there is accurate and that we all know it. And these are the active cases as of today. Remember, if somebody tests positive for COVID-19, they remain an active case on our dashboard for 10 days. So that Department of Health mandate is a 10-day isolation. And so these cases are people that are within that 10-day isolation period. You can see one at the elementary, 0 middle school, high school. We do have 2 staff members. And then I also like to just put a percentage of people that are with or without COVID. And you can see right now that we're at 0.5% of our entire population is COVID active, which means 99.5% of us are COVID free at this point. And I derive that number based on 560 students and staff. I take our K-12 student enrollment plus our staff members, and the staff includes teachers, paras, janitors, kitchen staff, administration, just anybody that's employed by the district. And just so you guys know that is how we come up with that number. One of the requests that I received on the stakeholder survey was to maybe include the cumulative cases, so all of them that have recovered. And here you can see is the recovered cases in our district over the last 15 weeks of school. We have been lucky in a sense that while we've had maybe a few cases, they are restricted to building level. So we might have 5 at a time in the high school, but at that same time, we wouldn't have any at the middle school and maybe no active cases at the elementary. So it's been really isolated, and it's been easier for us as a staff to handle from that standpoint. The graph on this slide is the active cases in South Dakota as of today, November 25th. You can see 16,657 active cases, so there is a lot of coronavirus active cases in South Dakota, and that's been well documented. I am fortunate that I sit in on meetings with Sanford Health and Monument Health, and then also the Department of Health, and their predictive models showed that we would have a winter spike. Certainly, you can see from this graph that there has been a spike. I hope that we're on our way down, but I'm also a realist, and I understand that December and January, when we looked at those predictive models, were expected to be some of the most active months for COVID-19. This is another graph taken directly from the South Dakota Department of Health website, and it just is a South Dakota 14-day trend line, and it shows the cases. You might notice that today is the 25th, but it doesn't have the 25th updated yet, and it always lags a few days behind. But you can see from this that the trends are in a good direction, and I hope that we can all work together to make sure that trend continues to decrease. To localize it just a little bit more, I looked at the Pennington County trend lines, and you can see Pennington County is also trending downward, which is a positive. Unfortunately, they do not break it down, or at least I have not been able to find it based on zip code. It is only by county. And my understanding is Pennington County has 111,000 residents. And so it is a broad stroke here, but I think it gives us an idea of what's going on in our county, and it's a microcosm of, or at least a snapshot of what's going on in the areas around us. I get on the Department of Health website daily, and I always check the state, I check Pennington County, but then I also like to check Custer. I just think it gives us another data point, another data set. Some of our students are from Custer, parents are from Custer, staff members are from Custer, and so I just like to, I guess, cross-reference what's going on in Pennington County with Custer to make sure that there's not an outlier. And as you can see from this graph, that there's a downward trend there also. Again, it is our hope that this remains consistent as we have vaccines in the horizon and you kind of have that light at the end of the tunnel. And so let's hope that we can keep the trend line going downward. And one of the final graphs I like to look at from the Department of Health is the cases by age range, and that's the graph on the left. That's the total cases that we've had reported to the Department of Health in South Dakota from the beginning of the COVID pandemic, and then compare that to the deaths based on demographics. And you can certainly tell the most impacted population is your elderly, and so as a community it's important that we work together to make sure that we safeguard and protect those people, the elderly population and the population that is at risk. Now also as a school superintendent, I think it's important for me to look at that pediatric range, which is 0 to 19, and at the bottom there I just put a note that we've had in South Dakota 2,182 confirmed pediatric cases in South Dakota, and thankfully we have not had any fatalities in South Dakota to this point. And really, if you even look at that under age 40 demographic, that demographic seems to be responding fairly well in South Dakota to the coronavirus. Moving on to our stakeholder results, and I definitely want to take a moment to thank everybody who completed the survey. The very first question was just a slide dial asking our stakeholders to give me their perception on the school year. I personally think it's been a remarkable school year. It has been hard. It's required flexibility. It's required teamwork. But at the end of the day, we have been in school. Our kids have been learning, and it's been a positive environment, I feel like. And so I was very happy to see that out of 160 respondents, the average score was an 8.3 out of 10, which I feel is a very favorable rating, a very favorable perception of this school year. Next, we wanted to take a look at what some of the top priorities were for you as a stakeholders, and academic progress was the overwhelming number one. It had 70% of people rank it as number 1 or 2 on the top answers and had a mean score of 3.2. Next was mental and emotional well-being. That was a mean score of 2.9. Safety from COVID was number 3, had a mean score of 2.25. And then access to extracurricular and after-school programs came in 4th with a 1.7 mean score, which is kind of what I thought the ranking would be with academics, with mental emotional, with COVID, and then extracurricular and after-school programs. One thing I've been very proud of is the fact that we've been able to stay in-person learning, and I think that personally I believe school is the best place for our kids. I've stated that multiple times in emails, but I also think it's important to kind of canvass our stakeholders. And I was happy to see that 73% of you felt that it was extremely important to be in face-to-face learning. 22% were, impartial, feeling that they could learn either way. And then 5% of our respondents felt that distance learning would be best for our kids. As superintendent, one of my main priorities is to engage you as stakeholders. I like to send out emails. I have website updates, Facebook updates. I do these types of surveys. I just really want your input. I work with and for you. So I was happy to see that 70% felt communication has been very good. 25.5% said it's been okay. And 4.5% said that it has been poor. And I asked if it was poor, how I could improve. And the answers I got were more frequent updates and then to put more information on the website. That's something that I will note and attempt to do. Certainly that COVID dashboard I will continue to send out weekly as a way to keep everybody updated on the cases in our district. Stakeholder perceptions of masking at school. On this survey, 60% of respondents believed that mask should be optional. 32% believed that mask should be mandatory. And then 8% believed that mask should not be allowed at school. And then I wanted to, I guess, have a cross-reference. How did this rank to the fall? Because I asked this very same question in early August when I did a survey. And the survey results were 70% believed masks should be optional, 25% at that time believed they should be mandatory, and 5% believed that masks should not be allowed at school. So you can see that we're down about 10% on the optional, up about 7% on mandatory, and up about 3% on a ban of mask. The information on this slide is regarding close contacts, and close contact is not somebody that actually tests positive for COVID. A close contact is someone who was within 6 feet for 15 minutes of a COVID positive individual and may have been exposed. Once we as a school district get that information, our principal, our secretaries, our support staff start to do what's called contact tracing, where we try to find students that were within that 6 feet for 15 minutes of somebody that tested positive. Our world stops at that moment when we get a positive case, and we start contact tracing, contact the parents, send the kids home. Our process right now is that it's 3 days and 72 hours from your last exposure, and that we ask that they monitor their symptoms for 14 days. And if they're even minimally ill, we want them to stay home. So that is our process. And the stakeholder survey, 59% thought that was about the right length, that 3 days. 31% felt that 3 days was too short, and 10% felt that 3 days was too long. Now, I will admit that as a superintendent, this is one of the biggest things I've had to wrestle with is the close contact. And you're trying to weigh that COVID exposure and quarantining potentially healthy kids versus academic, mental, emotional, social, all of those things. I can anecdotally tell you that a district near us sent home 150 kids that were identified as a close contact. Out of that, 0 of the 150 developed symptoms or tested positive. We don't have, I don't have a data set that is expansive enough to tell you one way or another. I will say we've probably sent home 40 kids on close contact, and we maybe have had one that has tested positive from that. So just a snapshot on the bottom here of what other districts are doing. 28% of districts in South Dakota, from the data we received a couple weeks ago, required no quarantine. So close contacts could come back to school the next day. 38% required 3 to 5 days of close contact. We would fall into this category. And then 34% would require between 7 and 14 days of quarantine, stay home from school if you're identified as a close contact. Finally, we wanted to take a look at our school culture and climate. Like I said, it's been a tough year. It's been a year unlike any other. Just COVID on its own is its own monster. And so I was pleased that just under 60% of our district, or our respondents, believe that our district has a very strong culture and climate. 35% believe we have a good culture or climate, and 5% believe that we have a poor culture and climate. And I asked the respondents, if you chose poor, please give examples. That way we can work on that. And the responses that we got were surrounding masking and the idea that everyone should wear masks, that teachers, janitors, students, and administrators, we should be the ones setting the example on masking. And so that's good information for me to have. I will say that I am very encouraged that 95% of the people that responded felt that we either had a strong or somewhat strong climate and culture. And finally, just some closing thoughts. December is an absolute sprint. We have 3 weeks left in the semester, and that will include NWEA testing, that will include final exams, so it goes very quick. Just ask that everybody remains vigilant, that you wash your hands, that you wear a mask if you can't social distance, that you stay home if you're minimally ill, and let's keep those active cases, let's keep that trend going downward. The rate of transmission has proven to be pretty low at school, and so just be aware of your close contacts outside of the academic day and who you're around. Next, I just want to thank you for your support. When you do a survey like this, it's tough because you want nothing but good answers, right? And you have to be vulnerable. You have to put yourself out there. And so I appreciate the honesty. And I do believe it's an absolute blessing to serve as your superintendent of the school district. I absolutely love this district. I can tell you there's nowhere else I'd rather be. And I want to keep working together with you to make sure that it is the #1 district in South Dakota, because that's what I believe that we are. And so thank you. Thank you for your support. And finally, happy Thanksgiving. I hope you have a wonderful little break. I hope you recharge your batteries, you come away healthier than ever, and have a great day and make today your masterpiece.